All right, we are live with Javier Leiva of Pretend Radio.
Hey, how's it going, Eric? Thank you for having me on your YouTube channel.
Hey, it's awesome to be here. And I actually met Javier. You asked me to a meetup a while ago in January, and I did not realize that you were out there. I kind of had heard about you because of Jerry Williams, who we both share as a friend and fellow podcaster, the FBI agent.
Right.
But I did not know about it, and the idea of your show stuck me in my mind. Like, ooh, con people. You'll notice behind me there on the bookshelf there's a particular book, P.T. Barnum. So
I haven't covered him yet, but that I'm trying to do historical crimes on my YouTube channel, so you might have inspired me.
Well, you know, why not? Why not? I mean, I don't know that he was necessarily a criminal. He's an interesting character because he was all about manipulation and things like that, which is what I'm studying. But con people, and this is where we're gonna have some fun. I'm riffing. I'll confess I haven't taken any notes. It's like I just want to go get on with another creator, talk shop, learn what you're doing, and get an idea of what's going on.
Well, let's talk about the whole notion of P.T. Barnum not committing a crime, and that's actually really what my show is about. It's more about deception and the art of fooling somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So con artists, I always tell my people who I bump into, they're like, "Hey, what's your show about?" Con artist is the shorthand, but really, it doesn't matter. It's all about deception. So it could be an undercover agent. It could be
so imposters more.
Yeah, imposters. Uri Geller, who's the guy that bends the spoons.
Sure.
I had him on my show. He didn't.
You had him on?
Yeah.
Is he open about it? Because the dude claimed it was real for too long.
Is he open? And he won't say that he's a con artist, but he will keep spouting out BS till this day. He says that his psychic abilities unlodged the ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal. Like, that was all.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
That was him, man.
He actually. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's still at it, man.
Oh my God. You know what? That is mind blowing because I'm embarrassed to say it's almost charming.
Oh, and that's like the key ingredient. Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm serious. It's like, you are so full of it, but you're doubling that. No, he's not doubling. He's 100 timing down.
Oh yeah. And prove him wrong. Prove him wrong. Can you prove that his mind did not
James Randi did.
Well,
but
and it's so funny because those two had a feud, to the very end. And I respect James Randi a lot. And so I also have an episode on him. I tried to get him on the show, but he was too sick at the time. So I interviewed his protege, Banishek, he's a magician who's taken over the James Randi Foundation, which is, they'll give you $1 million if you can prove that you have psychic abilities.
Good. So it's still in there. They've got the $1 million in a trust.
Nobody's been able to fool James Randi or the foundation. But what's interesting about the episode that I did on James Randi is a story that wasn't in the documentaries. It's a story that wasn't well told, but it was when Banishek, the guy who took over the foundation, was a high school kid. And James Randi recruited him to take part of the study, to study young psychics. And it was a U.S. government funded study to study these psychics. And these kids were young magicians fooling these scientists. It was hysterical. They would leave the window cracked of the laboratory during the day so that they could sneak in at night and bend all the metal,
Oh, God.
And they would come back the next morning. And they're like, oh, my God, these guys, they just had a psychic blast. And but it's so funny because those are the stories that I like to tell. I don't like to rehash stories that you've heard a million times. I always try to look for the one that you haven't heard before.
No, that's awesome. And so Banishek essentially was a little con artist who went to work for James Randi.
Oh yeah, it's hysterical. And that's the difference, because that's what I love about magic, is that a magician is telling you that he's going to fool you.
Sure, yeah, it's wide open. And you know what? You're playing along. You're saying, okay, please.
But that's the difference. A con artist doesn't tell you that he's fooling you. In fact, he just tries to convince you that is real.
True. And there's different levels too. And this is where it gets really interesting because, I'm very much into the mentalism aspect or whatever, but I'm interested in everything on a spectrum. And this goes all the way to cults. And a good example is that a cult leader, and I know you've done some covering of cults, a cult leader is a con man who keeps conning the same people continuously.
A cult leader is also a person that has to con themselves too.
Maybe.
Because, I came to the realization of that. I've been invited inside of a cult, for those of you who don't know me. That's kind of like, the Rolling Stones have Satisfaction. Well, I have my cult episodes. That's like what I'm known for, And so I was invited to this cult in Western North Carolina.
Do they call themselves that?
No, of course not. No, because they're just a church that's being persecuted. Cult. Right. Don't call themselves cults, but they are.
I want the cult that says we are the cult.
That would be such a lame cult,
It would be mind blowing though.
But I started reporting on this church, and they eventually, and I got a personal invitation to go to this church and meet with the cult leader, who was this little old 80-year-old lady who is terrifying. She's like the most terrifying person I've ever met. And all I wanted to get out of that meeting was, do you believe this stuff? Like, do you believe the same stuff that you're like spouting out that all these people in your congregation are believing? And, at the end of the day, I think she sort of believes it. I think a good con artist has to fool themselves into believing the lie in order to sell it. It's kind of amazing.
Somebody's asking if the live chat is on. Yeah, Kevin, it is on. I see different people here. So, okay, very interesting. I love that aspect of it. I love the cult aspect of it. What I'm interested in too is what is the con or person or fraud, pick any. What surprised you the most?
When I interview con artists?
Well, it could be both. It could be what story surprised you the most. That, what I always find interesting is when you go in thinking one thing and then you come out thinking something completely different. Did you have anything like that?
Well, it happens over and over again where I'm surprised, but I'm always surprised by the same thing. And the same thing is that the pride that they take. So here's the process. I work on the story. Usually it takes me like 6 months up to a year to work on a story. And so, I put it together, and then I publish it. And then I'm like, I have to email this con artist and tell them that the story is up. And it always makes me a little nervous because it's like, hey, some of the things that I'm talking about are a little unflattering to you. So I'm always, when I press that send button, I'm very nervous every time. And every time they reply and they love it. They love it. And I'm thinking, are you hearing the same podcast that I'm hearing? Because they take a lot of pride in their work. You see, they see it through some sort of filter where it's like this rosy filter where they're like, yeah, look at what I did. Look at what I accomplished.
Well, nobody's a villain in their own story.
Nobody's a villain, but they also have this rationalization that they're like, I'm not a bad guy. I didn't kill anybody. I'm not a mass murderer. These people, they had it coming. I mean, they should have known, like the Bernie Madoff the people who got ripped off by Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff in jail was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I did this, but you should have known that there was something up, right?
I actually wanted to go into that a little bit because, believe it or not, and watch the unsubscribe start happening, but I do feel that there are some instances where we deserve to be conned. Now, I'm going to say Bernie Madoff is a pure con person who is a nightmare because he was as a legitimate organization in the middle of Wall Street, all the trappings, to a lot of the people. They didn't realize enough that it was a pyramid scheme. And I could actually argue in some ways the whole stock market's a pyramid scheme. Because I feel like, well, I mean, if you think about it, they go out of business, they either acquire or they go on. I mean, Here's questions. I know legally I can't call it that,
Savings account.
but yeah, I mean, but sometimes effectively I feel like it is.
Yeah.
But how many times is the con where the mark is told, hey, can you hold this for me because I got to get it right now, and I'll give you $500 free money because it just can't get to the account right now. I'll give you $500, but I need to get that $50 from you in order to go get from. Now, what do you have in your mind? You're like, ooh, I'm going to get this free money. Now, if the first thing out of your mouth was somebody's like coming up with concocted scheme is, no, I don't care. No, sorry, dude.
And that ends right there. It ends.
Yeah,
right
there's
there.
no con. It's over. And I
the
feel
victim has to take part in the con. They're a participant, right?
They really are. And I mean, I don't like the fact that people are suckered per se, but there is an aspect of it that if you weren't greedy, you might not have gotten burned.
It is. And part of this is victim shaming. And I don't like that. But actually somebody in the comment said that Victor Lustig, right? He actually didn't sell the Hollywood sign. He sold the Eiffel Tower. No, the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, okay.
And so, but I mean, if somebody's going to sell you the Eiffel Tower, you have to, if you said, hey, that's kind of impossible, you're not going to sell me the Eiffel Tower, the con ends right there. But you were greedy and, and then you fell for it. I interviewed this one woman. Okay. She was the widow of the CEO of Wendy's, not Dave Thomas, but like the guy that took over for Dave Thomas. Mm-hmm. So she inherited this fortune, right? And there was this Ohio State football player who they knew each other, and somehow they reconnected when after her husband passed away. And I feel like he had the best intentions with her. Like, he would ask her for money, and I think he felt like
he was to pay her back.
I think he meant to pay her back, but it's like the Ponzi scheme, right? You gotta like borrow money from here, and then it spirals out of control. But when you ask me about the one time that I was the most surprised by any of the con artists that I spoke to was with this woman, because here's this con artist, this Ohio State football player, ripping her off. He depleted her bank account. Okay, she almost lost her house. Jeez. All right, he got her good. And this is the part that surprised me the most. She's the victim, right? In order to get out of this, she joins him in the con and starts conning her other rich friends.
Oh, no. That's not a complete surprise. And I was just talking to Tracy Brown on Monday. This is like turned into fraud week. Go figure. But it's how these things work out in patterns. But there are companies who you'll have an employee who's scraping the till, or they're robbing the company blind through fraud or whatever, and they get caught. Mm-hmm. And you know what happens to that employee quite often?
They get fired.
That's it. No prosecution or anything else, because that same employee has the power over the employer, especially their chain of command, saying, I work for you. You let this happen under your nose. You are the dummy who let me get away with it. And it is a really scary principle. And I don't see that as being too different from what you're describing right there. It's like, you let me sucker you out of all this money. I really didn't mean to, and I'd love to get it all, get it back, but you're going to have to help me. Right. And that, hey, she's already suffered. She's been a victim. So suckering her friends, well, she went through it. Yeah. She's surviving. They can do it too.
It's mind-blowing. And so, to answer your question is what surprises me the most. Those things surprise me, but they happen all the time, and they surprise me every single time. It's amazing. Now,
does it surprise you most that when you're talking to these people that you can really relate to them?
I have to. If I approach con, and we're labeling these people con artists, but that's the first thing I don't do when I talk to somebody.
In the nicest possible way.
I don't say, "Hey, how's it going? You're a con artist. Can we talk?" No, I say, for instance, for my new show, Criminal Conduct, he's not a con artist, but he's the bad guy in the show. Sure. I called him up today, And I can't approach him like, hey, I'm out to get you. I have to approach him like, hey, I kind of understand where you're coming from. And I'm hearing all your supporters say this about you. And
So,
I just
well,
want
let's back up and work that out, because I would love to see this. Play this out for me. How do you prepare? Because I'm going to guess that you don't just go, okay, it's Monday at 10. He's probably up. Let me give him a call.
oh my
You
God, this happened
probably,
today. I was shaking because my new season of Criminal Conduct comes out tomorrow, and we still don't have the bad guy. Well, the bad guy, I don't want to give it away, right?
no,
I don't
it's
want to
fine.
give it away. But when I approach somebody, I have their number and I avoid calling them because it's like this like internal panic sets off in me where I'm like, Javier, the personal guy, does not want to talk to this guy, but Javier, the podcast producer, has to talk to this guy. So I call them up. And half the time when I call these people up, it's either a disconnected number or they don't pick up, or people don't answer their cell phones anymore. I called this guy first try this morning. I got him. He was on there, and I'm like, hey, I said, I identified myself. I said who I was. I said what I was trying to do. And I said, I think it would be really important to hear from you because I am going to produce this story. But right now, I don't have your point of view on this. And so then I start trying to relate to him and
hold on. I got to show this. So you're conning the con man?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
There's a little bit in me
that's
a con person.
How do you prepare for it though? Because I'm thinking that you're thinking of the different angles. Like literally you're running a con. That was a great analogy, right? Where you're trying to get them to answer in a positive manner to you, like your dog who's not listening and probably not in a positive
I was
manner.
wondering if you heard that. I'm sorry.
Of course I heard that.
The UPS guy, the biggest con of all.
There you go. I mean, so do you put a flow chart together in your brain of like, okay, if they go on this, I'm going to stop here, or are you literally just winging it?
I'm winging it because you have to listen. Here's the thing. When I interview people, I don't even look at my notes because I have to be engaged. I have to listen and build off of their questions or their responses.
What about dates and times and things like that? Do you at least?
Oh, I mean, I have them available if I need to, but
okay,
and by the time I reach out to a con artist or somebody that I'm even a victim or whatever, I try to learn the story inside and out. And I've been working on it for so long, I know it, so.
It's interesting too. Now I'm going to go back in time because people don't realize you're an Emmy-winning documentarian.
That's right. I got, let's see. Well, but I have 4 of these bad boys, but.
Oh, Allison, he's got 4. You only have 2. No, my co-host on News with Booze has 2 Emmys. She's from the news.
So, yeah. And that's actually, I didn't get it from my news days. I got it from working in advertising. These are all for commercial spots that I directed. And
wow.
Yeah, that's where I come from. I come from the media world. I started off in broadcast journalism and then couldn't make any money there. So I switched over to marketing and advertising. That's what I still do today. And but I never.
So wait. You're into marketing and you like researching con men.
Well, because I started out in news. Oh yeah, marketing. Talk about that's a big con.
Back to our gentleman back here, probably the greatest marketer who ever lived.
Right. Yep. Marketing is selective facts that we have to give you, Yeah, we need another Burger King crown.
I'm sorry. It's an inside joke. Allison, last night on News with Booze, said that her Emmys were like Burger King crowns. And so she was wearing one.
They would make great weapons because they have pointy wings that are spaced right for the same distance as your eyes, and then you could club somebody. I mean,
so if one of your subjects, the con people, gets messed up, you'll be like, "I'm going to get you with my Emmy."
No, my mom actually, I gave her one of them, and she took it. She wanted to fly back to Miami with the Emmy, and I said, "I think you have to check that in because I don't think you could travel with that thing in the plane. It's a weapon." And she's like, "Oh, no, it's not." And she got in through security. Apparently everybody in security was taking pictures with it. So there you go. TSA.
Imagine. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm hijacking the story, not to be fun, but Okay, so you went from broadcast journalism to doing documentaries. What did you go to film school?
No, but early on in my career, I actually, one of the first media jobs I ever got was I was an intern at a PBS station in where I went to school. That's what I did in between classes, and just hanging lights in the studio and stuff like that. But I saw that I got to know the producer who would do all these documentaries, and I said, hey, do you mind if I transcribe some of these, script or interviews for you just to take the load off? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I would transcribe these things for him. At that point, I knew the story better than he did. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I take a whack at this script? And he's like, yeah, go knock yourself out. So I would put these scripts together, and then eventually they hired me. And so that was my first job, making documentaries for PBS. And it was awesome. Yeah.
So did they teach you filming, things of that nature?
I mean, I went to school for broadcast journalism. So that's where I learned all that. It all started happening at the same time. I started learning production. And so I have this, I've always wanted, before I started Pretend, I wanted to do documentaries, but documentaries take too long. Like,
Sure.
I have over 80 documentaries on Pretend. I couldn't, if I did it, with video, it would take me, God knows how long, and maybe not even one of them would actually see the light of day. So that's why I turned off the video brain and just started doing audio for the podcast. And I feel like I've been able to tell more stories that way. But now that I have a YouTube channel, I want to get back into it. I feel like I have an audience. I have really good stories. I know how to find the people, which is the hard thing. And I have this video skill that I'm not using. So I want to, now that when COVID starts slowing down, I want to get out there and start doing more documentaries on my YouTube channel.
That's really awesome. Now, did broadcasting teach you, or just working with other documentarians teach you storytelling? Because I'm very fascinated by that. And even though you're telling a story that exists, it's real or whatever, you still have to kind of lay it out in a manner, right?
I'll tell you what, I mean, school kind of taught me the foundations of writing, but really listening and watching has taught me even more. So early on, listening to Ira Glass tell stories, I knew that there was some sort of formula to it. I just could not put my finger on it, right? And I would, listen to interviews with him, and he came up with this great strategy. And it doesn't work every time, but it's a good starting point. A lot of people like to tell the story and start at the beginning. And that's a really boring way to tell a story. And in fact, you should start at the most interesting part of the story, and then kind of tell that a little bit, and then go back to the beginning and give some context, because you got to grab them right away. And that's called the lowercase e. You start where it's interesting, move forward, and then go all the way back until you come back to that point where you started. And I don't do that every time, but man, it was like a great mental shortcut. So when you listen to my stuff, I just jump right in. I'm not going to give you a lot of context and this and that. I mean, I'm going to throw you in the fire as a listener. And that's
right. Okay. So, and then everybody has to hang on and wait, what is he talking? No, why is this going on? And then you come back. The greatest
compliment you could give me is that I was late for work, or I missed the exit or whatever, because I was listening to your podcast. And then I was like, all right, I'm doing the right thing.
Personal attack against you.
What happened?
Ubuntu is greater than Red Hat.
Oh,
you've been attacked, I think.
Hey, open source is great either way, right?
Okay, I've heard that one of the popular methods of storytelling, and I've already forgot the guy's name, but he runs a network. He sold to Spotify for a bunch of money. Yeah. Alex. Anyway,
it's happening so much now.
Yeah, his story was something happened, which caused something else to happen, which you would think would cause something else to happen, but then this happened, and then that caused that.
Yeah, I mean,
is that a basic formula?
Are you talking about when you're discovering the story that you think you're going to approach it one way, and then
or do you actually write it out in that way? Like when you're presenting a story, do you deliberately?
I withhold. Yeah, I withhold information because, for instance, like in my other podcast, Criminal
Content. Thank you, Alex Bloomberg. This is why I have a chat, because I don't have a brain. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eva.
Yeah, for instance, and that's been the biggest challenge for me, because I know how to tell a story within an episode, maybe 2 episodes. That's easier, right? Because it's contained.
Mhm.
But telling a multi-part episode or a series is a lot harder. How to structure that story arc. And so, for instance, for Criminal Conduct season 2, I know how it ends, right? But I'm not going to tell you. If I tell you on the first episode how it all comes down, I mean, then why would you listen to the rest of the episodes, right? So I map it all out, and I put in, back before COVID, I would put stickies on a wall, and I would say, this is the story arc for the first episode, this is the story arc for the second one and the third one, and that gives me some sort of map to get to the end. And I want the episodes the series to build, not kind of deflate and let you down at the end,
Now, does that affect your selection of stories? I mean, like, it's probably helpful if you have an actual resolution to the story, but
yeah.
do you, I mean,
actually,
how do you cope with that? Do you make sure you have one to begin with when you're selecting?
Actually, so that's so I told you I like to know how the story ends, but that doesn't always mean that that's the way it would end. That's just the way I think it's going to end, or that I want it to end. One of the prerequisites, look at him. Is it a girl or a boy?
This is a boy, and he insists on, and he would be back there screaming if I didn't.
He has things to say.
That's right. That's right. He's got to have his appearance.
One of the prerequisites for Criminal Conduct actually is having a case that's unresolved. That's important. I would never want to tell a story that you could Google it and find out the ending. You know what I mean? So we purposely put ourselves in a bind for Criminal Conduct. So that's important for us.
Wow, that's okay. And then so you have a partner.
Yeah. So for Criminal Conduct, I have a co-host. His name is John Taylor, and he's actually somebody you might want to talk to one day, because he's actually in law enforcement, former Secret Service agent, and he does private investigations, and now he's doing some sort of top secret government project that he won't tell me, but I'm assuming that he's like probably flying around the world doing all sorts of crazy spy stuff. I have no idea.
I may want to. I probably have to talk to both of you guys, and I've already told the channel about this, but why not live run it by an expert, because that's always a fun way to go. I'm starting a series, and I've got at least one case, and I'm writing off of the back of a pair of podcasters' work. And essentially my thought was, because I have all these different experts on, what if, and this is a suggestion by Greg Hartley of the Behavior Panel, and he was saying, Eric, you have us, body language people, statement analysis people, handwriting analysts, all these people, even physiognomy, face reading. And he was like, instead of just talking about everybody and what they do, what if you had a case, and then you had all of your experts tackle components of the case and then record that out as multiple episodes?
Oh, so like previous guests that were experts?
Right. But instead of just talking about it, and I already got it, but like, here's some handwriting samples, and I submit it to the expert, and then she looks it all over, and then we get together and we discuss what she found, and it's relevant to a very specific case versus everybody's.
That would be fascinating, because then I mean, because you have all these connections too with all these different experts, and that to me just adds a lot of substance to a story, right?
Right, and that's kind of my thought. I mean, and most importantly, because I was going to do famous cases, because they could just draw more eyeballs. Obviously, everybody likes them,
and you have a lot more information out there about them, right?
There is, but then I thought about it, and I've had on Sheila Wysocki, who's a private investigator out of the Nashville area, and she tends to take cases that are lost causes, and these can be like. Cops find a case to be suicide, and the family is absolutely certain that it's not.
Right.
And it's not that uncommon.
Oh,
it really is not that uncommon. And it's kind of daunting to see how these cases are out there. And I hate to say it's a lot of times it's a female and a former boyfriend or whatever, but they get ruled suicide, and she gets them. So she's like chasing lost causes. And my thought was, what if I could put experts on something and help with a lost cause or help with an actual case? Maybe, you know, I'm not saying I'd break anything per se, but you never know, something out of it may inspire an investigation or something to happen that'll
That's
move it.
actually the premise. I mean, you described the premise of season 1 of Criminal Conduct, where it was a lost cause case. It's a case that's been kind of unsolved for 10 years now. And it's about a woman who dies, and her husband or her boyfriend is a sheriff's deputy, and she died using his service weapon, you know, and they quickly said it was suicide. But when you look at the facts, I mean, it's pretty obvious that there are at least some questions.
There's problems.
Yeah, there's problems. But the sheriff handled his own investigation. He was kind of protecting this guy, and this has been going on for 10 years. Then this sleuth, just an ordinary guy, starts looking into the case, and he starts hiring these experts like you're doing. I mean, you're not hiring them, but you're finding these experts, and he wants to find new evidence in the case. He hired private investigators, forensic specialists. Anyways, he gets murdered. All right.
No way.
Yeah, he gets murdered.
Wow.
And then now we're looking into his investigation, all the evidence that he picked up.
Whoa. Maybe I need to be partnering with you.
Yeah, it's a dual murder story. And so that was what Criminal Conduct was about. And we actually, so the guy gets murdered, and his the blood forensic expert study that he commissioned was never finished. So when we started the podcast, we got the blood expert to finish it, and we actually introduced new evidence into the case that wasn't seen before. And yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I think that these lost causes cases is the whole point why we're doing this, right? You know, it's almost like you have all these podcasts that are talking about Ted Bundy or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I mean, it's been, you know, done.
He's executed.
Yeah. But when you're actually trying to move the needle, I think that's really good work. And that's why we intentionally pick cases that are, I like how you phrased it, lost cause. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, our next season is another lost cause case. It's about a man, not the one that is going to air tomorrow, but our season 3 is about a college kid who was found frozen to death in the woods. And eventually they find who may have killed him. A jury tries him, finds him guilty, and then the judge overturns the verdict. It's unheard of. So it was almost a unanimous, like, guilty. The judge overturns it, and now this guy is out there free. And so for me, that's a lost cause case, because in order to resolve it, you know.
That's a weird one. There may be something to do. I know it's weird because this kind of came up because of OJ. And I've had his manager on. I'm not going to say that his manager's a character. Okay. I'll just leave it at that.
You have to be in order to work for OJ.
Yeah, it's interesting. But he brought up what I think is actually a valid point, that OJ really cannot admit to doing anything, because while he can't be nailed on murder, he could be nailed on conspiracy. So that might be,
from what I've seen on his social media, he flaunts it. I mean, he basically is like admitting
right, but he never actually said.
He never really says it.
You could just spout off all day, you know, whatever. Well, if I did it, and from his manager said that he didn't even write that book. They just handed him cash, and he's like, yeah, okay. And so I don't know. That's really hard. And he was obviously convicted of the murder when he did that Vegas thing, which you really shouldn't have been convicted for at all. So that was a backdoor payback. But theoretically, there are other things. So, like, let's say you've got somebody, that guy or whatever, he got let off. Maybe there was another crime involved somehow. They could be nailed on. I don't know.
But, I mean, why take the risk? I don't know. But for me, the question that would drive me in that case is like, why did this judge do this? You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a reason. It was basically the phrasing in the prosecutor's charge or something like that. There was one word that was inaccurate or something like that. He threw the whole case because of it. I mean, I just want to know what the motivation is, because now there's this guy that a jury found guilty, and he's scot free. So
yeah,
but,
I think there's another case out there though that where they're actually appealing that kind of situation, because I don't know if you have a claim because you're found guilty by a jury of your peers, right? But if a judge overturns it, there may be some actual appellate law that could be explored. That seems like a case that might have to go to the Supreme Court, in the sense that, well, wait a minute, we the people said, hey,
yeah,
guilty. They elected to be tried by a jury.
it's so unheard of, you know, like you don't hear about that all the time, and it's really sad, you know.
Yeah, somebody's asking, the judge should be investigated. Is the judge being?
I don't think so. But we haven't really started digging into that yet. But that was supposed to be our second season, but COVID had other plans for us. So.
Sure.
So this season, the one that comes out tomorrow, it's really interesting. It's about a constable. Do you know what a constable is, Eric?
Yeah, it's like a deputy, right?
Yeah, but it sounds like something from like back in the day, or back
in Canada, they're constables, I think.
Yeah.
They're in different areas. It's just
you're gonna like this. So a constable in the state of Kentucky, which is where our story takes place, has the powers of a sheriff, is an elected official. So you could be a constable. You just need maybe a couple hundred votes, and then you become constable.
Okay, everybody vote. I want to be a constable.
Eric, do you have any law enforcement training?
No, dude. I just talk to people. I'm too lazy.
But you can still be a constable. Being a constable,
is that like a coroner? Because coroners are elected.
Yeah, it's kind of like a coroner in a way that it's an elected official, but this guy has all the powers of a sheriff, but yet no chain of command. So he can't be fired. The only way to get rid of him is like an act of Congress or getting, you know,
well, you can
he won't get
him in election, right?
Yeah, but every 4 years, right?
Okay, so he's got 4 years.
How does a constable in Kentucky get paid? He only gets paid by serving warrants and papers. I mean, it's chump change, like $30 here, $30 there. That's not a good living. But another way that a constable could get paid is the same way that law enforcement fund their department, is through acquisition. Yeah,
forfeiture.
So forfeiture laws, and so they could. Let's say they arrest you and they think that you're a drug dealer, and they find scales, they find little baggies. Oh, and you have a brand new truck, you have a new boat. They could seize all that. A constable in Kentucky gets 85% of whatever is auctioned off. Okay, so talk about they could be impeached, and I'm so sorry, my dog has something to say again, but they could be impeached.
Your dog's going to be impeached here soon. No.
Yeah, my dog, but they don't get impeached. And so meanwhile, this creates this conflict of interest, right? Where you have these constables who should be delivering warrants and papers, like divorce papers and doing traffic stops when the lights go out or whatever. Instead, they're going around busting people for drugs. And this one constable that we're looking at, he is accused of planting drugs on people so that he could seize their property. He steals.
Well, it saves time, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, really. Why should I wait for a good truck to come along if I see yours?
Yeah, but and he's going after all these quote unquote low life people, right?
And nobody's going to argue.
Who are they going to believe? Are they going to believe the guy with the heroin addiction problem or the meth problem? Or are they going to believe this constitutionally elected law enforcement official? And it is incredible the amount of conflict that's going on in Kentucky, and that's what we're going.
It's not only that, though. I mean, you're bringing a light into a very large problem that I see out there, period. There are a lot of law enforcement agencies in the country, small departments in smaller towns, things like that, who absolutely are corrupt just like that. And they will seize vehicles driving by on the interstate. A lot of these forfeiture laws, I think, need to be explored, especially because
they do need to be explored. But could you imagine? It's hard to pin it. Like, let's say you're, I don't know, a state trooper, and you seize property. It's not going directly to you. Okay,
no, it's going to your department.
So there is still a conflict of interest. It's with the constable. It's going to.
Oh, I know. Well, you're just cutting out the middleman. It's the same crime, though.
It's the same crime, yeah. And you know, it is a way that police departments fund their departments, and the FBI, you know, when they drive cars, that's how they fund it. But I agree that it should be looked at.
But I have problems with it just automatically being fun. But you have to always look at incentives. And I think that's really my big issue. And, same reason as that constable you just said right now. You're like, well, you're not, that's a lot of work for a $30 ticket here and there and everything else. It's like, what is that? This guy's only making 40 a year tops. And that's, if he's, doing his job and
it's
he's
usually
pretty
for a
diligent.
retired cop. Like, let's say there was like a guy that retired from the force and he just wants to make a little bit of money on the side just to kind of get him out of the house. That's what a constable should be. But instead, you got these rogue cops who think they're Billy Badass, going around like stealing people's money and planting drugs. And it creates quite a situation, man.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, if he can, if a undercover drug agent can do it, because there's bad cops, there's good cops.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, why not? Especially if there's no oversight.
No,
and there's that whole thing of, and I think one of the biggest problems in Law and Order is that there is a mindset that if you bust somebody, and maybe they didn't do this one, they did something else.
Yeah.
That's
the kind of
feeling. They're a crook. Okay, fine.
Well, when I talk to his supporters, they're like, "Hey, you know what? He's taking care of a problem. We have a real big bad meth problem, opioid problem in our rural county, and he's taking care of it, and the cops aren't. So who cares? Like that's the attitude.
So that's a vigilante mindset.
A little bit, yeah.
Because you're like saying, well, that's our bad guy. I mean, hey, that's how the mob. You know that for a long time, the mob was not only tolerated but sometimes embraced by the neighborhoods.
Yeah,
because they would take care of it. You're not going to have a gang problem in a mob-controlled area.
Right.
People
it's
disappear.
Like self-government. And Mangles the cat. You're right. It is kind of like a TV movie. Did you ever watch the show The Shield?
I have not. That's kind of on my list because I love Walton Goggins and I love Justified.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that.
Actually, it's probably in Harlan County area, isn't it? I wouldn't be surprised.
Where the show takes place?
No, well, you said Kentucky, and Justified takes place in Harlan County, and Harlan County is like meth and oxy, central. Very
I'm
rural.
not sure
Kentucky.
Exactly how close these two counties are, but I would imagine that this is a problem in rural America, right? It's not, I mean, not the constable problem, but the opioid crisis and,
a lot of it. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the towns have been ravaged through time. And
it's really sad. I mean, it's a real problem. And this constable thinks that he's the solution to that problem.
Yeah, and Joy Catcher's right. Can't be naive to this stuff. Yeah, but then it's very, 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 very hard to track every single thing that's out there because your whole premise is you've got a cast of characters who are always out there looking how to get by on this bit. And I was thinking about it. I haven't read his book yet, and I forgot the guy's name, but he was like one of the most famous sort of hustlers of all time. And he was a rival to Minnesota Fats. It was like a Texas Slim or something or another. I'd have to figure out the name. I forgot it. I got the book and now I'd have to go looking for it.
I should brush up on my con artist trivia for real.
He's kind of, I don't know. He's sort of charming though, in a way, because this guy, one, he didn't like to sucker, if you will, normal people. He always went after giant targets. So like,
but you see, but that's how they rationalize it too.
It's well, that's true. That's true. I mean, at least this dude was, funny about it. So he would go up to somebody, and I don't know if I'd even call it a con, because he would say for example, he would go to a professional golfer and he would say, I can strike and hit 1,000-yard putt or whatever is just ridiculous. Right.
Right.
And he would bet a top level pro who has all the money in the world and say, I can do that. And this pro would say, there is no way in hell you can do that. They're a pro. They know this, right? So then the guys say, okay, fine. Bets in $30,000. Several months later, he goes, gets him, flies to the Great Lakes, sets a ball outside and goes smack, and it just bounces on the ice all the way down. Now, is that a con or is that a sucker bet? And I kind of am just sort of laughing at that, because one, he is getting somebody who is very, very wealthy,
right?
Probably a little bit arrogant on it. He's not really harming the little guy, stealing their lunch money. And I don't know.
And it's funny. Do you think you could ever get conned, Eric?
Absolutely.
You think so? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of people think that, no, not me, right?
Oh no.
Those are the ones that get conned.
Oh no. I'm with way too many experts, and to me, my biggest safety is the fact that I am certain that I can be tricked, or that I can be manipulated, or I can be conned. And talking to all of them, the most uncertain person is their worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. Because a person who's uncertain doesn't act. People who are certain, they act. So that's if you're like, oh, you can't get conned, yeah, con men love them, because then when they make a move, it couldn't be conned because they're impossible to con, right? Whereas somebody uncertain is like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And meanwhile, it's like they've got to move. For a con to work, they got to keep it moving. They got to keep it moving.
Yeah. And you got to earn the person's trust too. It's just that's the best part about cons is con artists like to be they're very generous. They give you stuff at the beginning. Yeah. Well, not all of them. I mean, it's hard to generalize these things, but I'm thinking of one right now where it was this woman who was running this inheritance scam, and I didn't interview her because she's in prison right now, but I interviewed her victim, and her victim was disarmed by the fact that she would take him out to all these fancy dinners, and they would go out, and she was always paying for things. And then she asked him for a loan, and he gave her the money, and she paid him back. She paid him back. That was all part of the con, earning trust. And then she hit him. You see, once you disarm the person, then you're good.
That's a long con, and most don't have that kind of patience.
Right. Exactly. There's always the hustlers that are trying to make a quick, con, but the long ones are the ones that we remember, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are marriages.
Actually, so sorry.
Go.
No, I was mowing the lawn the other day, and I was thinking about what you just said reminded me of it. But I wonder, we're not 100% truthful to anyone, right? Like there's always this secret that everybody has that we keep to ourselves, right?
Right.
But there is one thing that we are 100% honest to, and that is the internet. Like Google, we are honest to Google, right? We'd say all sorts of things.
There's a book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts.
Yeah. And so I just thought about, it would be interesting to talk to like somebody who's a Google search expert.
I know a billion wicked thoughts.
Oh, really?
It was an algorithm person. And that's what he was talking about, is all the searches that are out there. And then they ran the statistics on what these all meant.
Like how many people are being unfaithful to their partner, like maybe not physically, but like mentally, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Just finding all the search terms. So I'm going to look that up after this. Call.
Yeah. I mean, and autocomplete can give you a lot of hints along the way.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, we never even talked about how to find con artists.
Yeah,
are you interested
all right.
in how I find them?
Well, I'm going to call Javier and say, hey, I have done this, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell us how
because you asked me how I prepare for it, but
yeah,
I interviewed this guy. He's a good friend of mine now, Michael Basil. Sorry, and this is his book. And it's become there's two books, but this is the Bible. This is my Bible right here, and basically it is
privacy. Okay.
This guy, he's basically invisible. You can't find him. I don't even know if Michael Basil is his real name, but he has taught me how to disappear from the internet because, for privacy concerns, but that's a whole other topic. But he also has provided me with a lot of resources on how to find people. So it's not only how to disappear from the internet, but all the different ways that you are exposed in the internet. If you just reverse that concept,
okay.
it's a great searching tool. So I'm always looking at open source databases, and there's a lot of hacked, you know, sites out there that have people's information. And so I have multiple methods on how to locate these people, and none of them is foolproof, but man, it takes a while, and it's a lot of dedication out there. Oh yeah. Extreme privacy, what it takes to disappear. And I think this is the new one. It's the same book, but he came out with the second edition, which is quite bigger than the first edition.
Is it worth getting the second? Because sometimes the second editions are just like
he just updates
fluff.
it. He updates the page or the book, and it's great. It's just full of resources. Actually, so this one is on how to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I'm actually supposed to be showing you is the open source intelligence techniques. This has everything from, like, when I was for Criminal Conduct, when I was researching this sleuth that died, I couldn't find anything on him. But here I could search dating websites. I could search DMV records. I could search IP addresses and coordinates and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's a great tool for finding people.
Well, OSI is used by the CIA.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to them, and I know they do it, and they use social media all the time, and especially like in Libya, Benghazi, and whatever. Sometimes they get better information there than they do from sources.
Yeah,
because like a suspect or a combatant's aunt might be having a wedding.
Right.
Odds are pretty good, in that Facebook that you might see, oh, such and such is going to be there.
Oh man, people give so many clues as to where they are on social media. And it's a good learning lesson for all of you who are listening. Like, try your best to disappear and not put yourself out there, because you never know when Eric or Javier could be calling you, and it's never good.
Well, okay, but that's one question. That's how to track down the components of it. How do you find the stories?
Well, that's an interesting. There's not a one way to find stories too. I mean, the way I like to talk about it's like fishing. You just got to cast a lot of lines in the water and see which one bites. And so when I find something interesting, either on social media or Google News alerts or something like that, I'm like, ooh, this is an interesting story. And I look up.
Do you set up news alerts for keywords?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For fraud, con artists, all sorts of things, or people who I'm actually like after. And then I reach out to that person right away. I mean, I could be watching TV and I'm, just like surfing the web, and I see a cool story. I immediately email that person, and I don't do any more research after that. I just email the person, see if they're interested, and I move on and I find something else. And eventually they bite, if they bite.
What's the success rate on that? I'm curious.
Oh, it's very low. So you just have to keep going at it. I mean,
sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I don't know, probably 10% of the time they actually bite.
That's actually pretty good. 1 out of 10.
I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there, but
yeah,
most of the time it doesn't work. But I mean, it works enough, Yeah.
Well, and that's, I guess, another good question is, you just mentioned it could take you 6 months to work out one story. How do you work with them? You have to get a story out every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Do you have 5 concurrent investigations and hope that things fall into place, or 6 or what? Or is some of this just literally?
No, I'm working on multiple stories at the same time. And so like I have Trello. It's a tool that I use, which is basically just cards that I could stack, and then each card has information about the story. And so like right now I'm working on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories. They're at different phases. And that's just for pretend. I'm not even including Criminal Conduct. And so I work on a story here and there, I just jump around until they mature into an actual episode. And that's why it takes me so long, because usually when I make that first contact, I don't have enough for the story yet.
Okay. So it has to be really handy for you. Like, when you heard Jerry, like you'll listen to Jerry Williams and you got a hold of one of her guests, and the person they had on Jack.
Well, just
That
one of
had to
their
be it.
guests wasn't enough, right? So like she had, well, in that case, she had Jack and the FBI agent, but usually she just has the FBI agent. And so like if Jerry gives me a lead on a story, cool, I have the FBI agent, but that's not enough to make a story out of it, right? I got to find the victims, I got to find the perpetrator, and all that takes time. So it's not like fishing out of a barrel. I can't just have one guest on.
No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting about that though is I saw pictures of you with this person.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
not local to you.
Yeah.
So are you traveling on all of yours?
Pre-COVID, I mean, so I can't travel for every story because I'm an independent podcast producer and I'm not making a lot of money out of this stuff. I mean, I do have ads on my show, but it pays enough for my editor and the hosting and all that stuff. But occasionally I like to save a little bit of that money to go out there and get and work on the story, because I feel like you get, man, when you're face to face with somebody and you get to spend time with that person and you get to go to a diner with that person and you get to learn all about this person, how irritated this guy was when the waitress kept asking him if everything was okay. You know, like that told me a lot about this character that I would never gotten over the phone, you know?
Sure.
You get more dimension to the story. So I always like to pick like 3 or 4 stories out of the year that I could go travel. For that one, that was a good one. So he's, if you're interested in that story, it's called The Bounty Hunter. But then, so I went to Mobile, Alabama, or actually,
Mississippi.
I flew into New Orleans and I drove to Mississippi. It was somewhere in Mississippi. Anyways, wherever he lived, I found another con artist that lived like maybe a mile down the street. And so I had 2 cons in one trip. So I make my trips count, man. It was so funny. I left one con artist's house to another one.
I love it. That's freaking brilliant, dude. Okay, so even though so you only travel some of the time, but then like your Doug Williams, seems like you touch multiple times. Like versus like right now I'm with Javier. We may not, we'll talk on the side or whatever.
I mean, we'll talk because we talk normally.
Right. But
normally
as far as episode,
done, right?
Right. Yeah. As far as episode goes, I'm having this single contact or whatever. Is that part of your strategy that, you call people and then you just set up another call for later? You call them in a couple days and I hope he is conning me right now. As long as it gets views and likes. By the way, how many people like this? I want to see. I got 58 likes. Come on now. I got 58 likes with 83 watching.
Yeah, I don't pull those numbers on my YouTube channel. I'm learning.
No, I know that folks can like it though, because we got to bump this up. We got to get you discovered.
That's right. But you were saying like usually I touch base multiple times, and that doesn't happen strategy. All the time.
Is that like you just, as you think of questions, you like note a few more, or, like when you listen back editing, you come up with more? I'm just curious your process.
It doesn't happen all the time. It just happens organically. Right. So for instance, with Doug Williams, it was just basically, he would get tired of talking to me. He's like, can I call you back? So I was like, yeah, sure. But,
the added color though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I left those parts in the story because I felt like they'd added some color, and you realize the amount of work that I had to do to get the story, but like part of my strategy when I'm interviewing somebody is that I don't want them to know that they're being interviewed. And that goes back to being a con artist, is that I like to have a conversation with you. So if I start out very formally, I'm like, so blah blah blah.
Right. Okay. Let me start the recorder, and
then they give me canned answers. And so when I have a conversation with them, we're just talking. And so I tell the people that I interview all the time, I'm like, hey, I'm recording. But then after a while, I'm like, just assume that every time we talk, I'm recording. Because and I'll call them back, or like they call me back. I don't know if you've listened to the Treasure Hunter series that I have. That's another problem, is that you befriend these con artists and then they keep calling you back, and like they call you back over and over and over again. And so most of the time they're calling me back, not me calling them back.
Well, you're getting I mean, there is a degree of wanting attention, and it's a celebrity aspect. I mean, come on. We want to have a little bit of celebrity.
Right. Oh yeah. That's why I said that they're kind of proud of the final product. which is odd. Because
Well, I mean, well, what, you going to be ashamed or you get recognition? It's really a hard paradigm. I mean, hey, they pulled something over. They were successful in their own way, I guess. Notorious. And that's actually, I'm going way down another path, but that's one of the concerns I have with mass shooters is the same way you have con people and they like their story out there. It gives them notoriety. Well, there's these killers and they're doing it for glory. A lot of it is glory.
Actually, that's one of my YouTube videos. I interviewed these media professors from these universities, like one in Canada, one in Pennsylvania. And their whole idea was that, did you know that around the world, they don't name the killer all the time? Like or the suspect, they don't.
Right.
That's an American thing.
Well, we actually did it with suicides because we had suicide clusters.
Yeah.
So unless it's somebody famous, they don't publish names for suicides.
No, but you shouldn't do it for mass murderers either, because here's the thing. It's for the same reasons you're talking about. Not only are you giving them a platform and they are looking for that, they're seeking that kind of attention, but did you know that they have family members that don't want to be involved in this, that had nothing to do with those mass murders? Good point. There's different things to take into account.
Too, yeah.
And what is the value of naming these people? There is very little value. So I'm actually taking that into consideration and thinking about, when I do a story like these con artists, should I even give out their full name? Because really what I'm trying to do is tell their story, but I wonder how much value it is in all these, all these famous killers have, we know their middle names, John Wilkes Booth,
Oh yeah.
Why do we need to know these people's middle name,
Right now, everybody, I posted Javier's channel in the chat because he doesn't have the customized URL. He'll look for one. But if you just search for Pretend, you should find it. It's stories about con artists, and everybody really should go subscribe right now. It's 444.
Well, I'm working on it. I'm not as devoted as Eric to the YouTube channel, but I am trying. I'm doing a lot of live interviews and posting videos, usually like bonus content from the show that didn't make it on, because I record all my interviews on video, and I thought, well, might as well post them on YouTube, for the YouTube audience. Sure. But I do plan to grow the show, and it's just another medium, and it's just one more thing to do.
Well, yeah, you have the skills. I mean, look, I'm here just putting something on. I don't have those.
No, I know, but it's time.
Envy.
It's time.
Absolutely. So everybody subscribe, and you'll have stuff to check out as he grows.
And then I have to keep pumping it out.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, dude, this has been amazing. We've got the YouTube channel out there. You also are at pretendradio.com.
Or Pretend Pod on social media. But
pretendradio.org is the website.
Yes, the website is pretendradio.org. But if you want to find me on social, just type in Pretend Pod and I'm there.
Oh, yeah, he's all over. And his
name. My medium of choice is Twitter, but I respond to all of them. So,
and he's good about responding, and really his show is excellent. He is
thank you, man.
Fantastic. He does professional soundscaping and whatever. It's not just he's literally telling a story. It's an audio documentary.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And I'm a big fan, and I look up to your YouTube channel because, like Eric said earlier, the reason why we connected was because I was like, I want to talk to a successful YouTuber. Like, how do you do this thing? Because I knew I wanted to start a channel, and that's how we connected. So I look up to everything you do, and I'm really happy to share my story with your audience. Thank you for having me.
Of course, dude. And I will be poaching guests from Javier as much as I can.
You gave me a great story idea that I want to work on pretty soon. So
awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, everybody, you like this? You like this kind of guest? Please subscribe. Please tell a friend. Please check out Locals. You don't have to pay. It's free. You can pay. I appreciate it if you pay, but it's free on structure.locals.com. And for now, thank you, Javier.